Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting. Council has been in meetings all day, and in fact, the last one ended about 5 minutes ago, so our apologies for being a couple of minutes late. I want to express, first of all, to our Hindu and Sikh residents, Happy Diwali, and to an Islamic, it's also Islamic New Year, so Happy New Year to our Muslim community here in Coquitlam. By coincidence, today we're dealing with some issues around philanthropy, issues around giving, issues around the way in which we care for those in our community that are most in need, and I want to welcome those in the audience that are on one of those two staff reports. Coincidentally, today is also November 4th, which is Use Your Common Sense Day. It'll bode well, I suspect. Mr. Clarke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item this evening is a presentation. I'd like to invite Julie Fisher, who's the board chair, and Janet Toddington, who's the board vice chair from the Coquitlam Foundation. They're coming forward to speak about the Foundation's annual review and to mark National Philanthropy Day.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Julie Fisher. I'm the chair of the Coquitlam Foundation. With me is the vice chair, Janet Toddington, and in attendance are directors Mayor Richard Stewart, City Councillor Terry O'Neill, Treasurer Bob Tanaka, Director Linda Menengello, and our Executive Director Dale Clarke. First, on behalf of the Foundation, we would just like to congratulate the councillors-elect who are here tonight, and we're looking forward to seeing you down here at some point in the future. Now, each year around this time for the past few years, we have attended before Council to update you on the philanthropic activities of your community foundation. This is in recognition of National Philanthropy Day, which is November 15th across Canada. And just to give you some background for those who have not heard of the Coquitlam Foundation, the Foundation is focused on improving the lives of the residents in Coquitlam through charitable initiatives and giving. We do this by promoting focused giving within the community and providing a vehicle that can connect the donors to the community and to the charities that operate in Coquitlam. The Foundation is a non-profit corporation that was established by an act of the legislature in 1992, which means we're in our 21st year of serving Coquitlam. And the objects of the Foundation are set out in the act, and those are providing for needy persons, promoting the betterment of the underprivileged, disadvantaged, and delinquent, promoting educational and scientific or medical research and advancement to increase human knowledge and to alleviate human suffering, to promote recreational activities and the conservation of human heritage or natural resources, also providing cultural, educational, and other charitable purposes such as support for seniors, youth, heritage, arts, culture, community wellness, and so on. The work or reach of the Foundation is to benefit primarily the residents of Coquitlam within our boundaries.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to discuss a little bit about what we do as the Foundation. Julie's described our various missions and objects. In order to fulfill those objects, we have established a number of funds, both foundation-directed and donor-directed funds. Our foundation-directed funds enable donors to address a wide spectrum of need in the community by targeting their donation. And these funds include our new Coquitlam Foundation Community Fund, made up of several previously separate funds. We've amalgamated those funds in order to better meet the needs of the community, be a little bit more flexible with the requirements from day to day or from year to year. We also have the James Gordon Stewart Fund, Johnson Legacy Fund, and Coquitlam Foundation Land Trust. The foundation also facilitates corporations, societies, and individuals, allowing them to establish their own fund in their name, in the name of a loved one, or for a particular cause or program. And I'm very, very pleased to announce that this year we have 5 new donor-advised funds. The Michael Koss Brain Injury Fund, the Trevor Wingrove Bursary Fund, the Westfield Lift Fund through the Cabby Alternative Secondary School, and the Daniel and Gary Cooling Education Fund, and the Steps Together Fund. Just to give you a little bit more information on each of those new funds, the Michael Koss Brain Injury Fund is to provide financial support to a broad range of treatment options that might otherwise be unavailable to a child suffering from brain injury. And we have a wonderful photograph of Michael Koss. The Trevor Wingrove Bursary Fund was established in the memory of Trevor Wingrove, a longtime local lacrosse star and respected City of Coquitlam manager. This fund awards bursaries for post-secondary education or training to a student athlete who's played lacrosse in Coquitlam. The Westfield Holdings Learning Initiative for Tomorrow Fund is designed to benefit graduates of Cabby, the Coquitlam Alternative Basic Education Secondary School. This school offers, of course, a unique educational program. And the Cooling, Danielle and Gary Cooling Education Fund has been established to assist students in the Tri-City area with post-secondary education or training. And the Steps Together Fund is also education-oriented, created to assist students in need.
So what we do is the foundation manages and invests funds to help them grow so that the philanthropy through the grants to the community can carry on for years to come. Our investments have performed above the market averages over the past few years while maintaining a very conservative investment policy. Total investment income was 6.1% over the past year, which is consistent with past performance, which again is outperforming a lot of other less safe investments. We invest conservatively to protect that capital, but still allow the investment to grow so that there is a return that can be gifted to the community. The Foundation seeks out grant, scholarship, and bursary applicants to apply for the funding from the various funds, and we distribute notice of those that call for applications in February each year. The Foundation also provides assistance and guidance to the individual fund holders to achieve their goals, and a good example of that is the Westfield Fund that's supporting Cabby students. Janet is on our grants committee, and she stepped in when Westfield wanted to establish the fund, and she helped them create an application, a form and process, and now sits on their board to help them achieve their goal. Also, from time to time, the Foundation will partner with other foundations and charities to help achieve common goals. At this time, we're working together with the other foundations in our community, Port Moody and Port Coquitlam, to try to come up with a Tri-City fundraiser that will support all 3 foundations, which are important to all of our communities. So over the last year, we've engaged the community in many ways. One, we partner with the Coquitlam Center's Unwind event. That's the wine tasting event in May. The 3 Divas Oscar Night Party in February, which was a riot. And the Coquitlam Crunch Challenge, which supports one of our fund holders, which raises funds for diversity in the community. And Milestones Restaurant, who called us up and wanted to help us out and raised a few $1,000s for us at one of their dinner nights. We also had our 20th anniversary gala last year. Just a couple quick photographs. That's the Coquitlam Foundation at the Crunch. And another photograph, this was from our 20th anniversary gala. You'll see the group there, that's the Bangra Idols. They're from Surrey, but in the interest of philanthropy, they came and volunteered their time and to support our event and put on a great show for us. So we're very grateful to them for that. So the results. In the 21 years since our founding, fund holders, donors, and volunteers have built an endowment portfolio totaling more than $2.4 million. This is an increase of $500,000 since we last reported to you 2 years ago. Since 1992, we have distributed more than $800,000 to individuals and organizations in the community. The funds were generated primarily from earnings on the endowments, but also direct fundraising by the foundation.
Now I'd like to get to what I call the pointy part of the foundation, and that's where we are able to make funds available and disperse these funds to eligible students and community organizations to make a difference in our community. At our annual awards night last spring, held at the Evergreen Cultural Center, the foundation and our fund holders were able to provide a total distribution of approximately $114,000 in grants, scholarships, and bursaries. And of course, if you would like to see the full list of recipients, it's available on our website. We have a photograph of some of our recipients during that evening. In addition to helping students with bursaries and scholarships, we're able to impact our community. And one of the ways that we were able to do this year is to provide a grant to support the Coquitlam Public Library City Centre branch. We donated $36,000 to the library to allow it to purchase equipment for a multi-purpose room. And we're very happy that we were able to have that room named in our honor. And we held our AGM this year, for the first time held at the City Centre branch, in our very own named room. And a photograph we have of that event.
So looking ahead, in February, we will be calling for applications for the grants, bursaries, and scholarships of our funds, as well as our donor-directed funds for distribution. With our new community foundation or community fund, our CF2 fund, this has allowed us to greater flexibility to actually fund some of the grants that otherwise we were not able to grant because there was insufficient funds in that particular fund to support the applications we received. So this new community fund will actually enable us to look at all the applications before us and make grants across the board for the areas in need. And last, we would like you to keep us in mind. What can you do to help your community foundation? First, we would ask that you talk about us. Many of you are out and about in the community every day or week, and if you can talk about the foundation, that will help raise awareness about our existence and what we do. It will also help bring applicants in need, their charities in need, to us to make application. So it's important that you talk us up. Secondly, our board is going to need 1 or 2 new directors to replace retiring directors in the next 2 to 3 years. So if you are a philanthropist, you want to give back to your community, you have useful skills and time to give, and a passion for philanthropy, we would ask that you consider applying for a director on our board. And if you know of anybody like this, please send them our way. We will send notice when we are calling for board directors. Notices will go out to all the city council by email, so you will know about it, and I'd ask that you tweet that on or refer it on however you can. Also, if you have a chance to attend any of our events, particularly our awards night, it's a free event. It's a chance to come out and see, meet all the charitable organizations that are receiving grants, meet the bursary students that are receiving bursaries, and so on. It's a great night. It's at the Evergreen Cultural Center, and it'll be June 5th, I believe, next year. So just wish to thank you for hearing us tonight, and hope to see you at one of our events soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, and I do want to apologize to you both. I neglected to turn your 5-minute timer on. Really do appreciate all the work that the folks at Coquitlam Foundation do, but there's so many other groups around our community that do great and wonderful work, and National Philanthropy Day week is certainly an occasion to thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our second presentation concerns the 2013 Citizen Survey. I'd like to invite Jennifer Rennie to come forward. She's the Senior Research Manager for Ipsos Public Affairs, and we have introductory comments by the Deputy City Manager.
Thank you very much. Through the Chair, the City has recently completed its annual Ipsos Reid Citizen Satisfaction Survey. This is an annual exercise that we've been doing since 2003. I'm pleased to say that the results for 2013 are very positive. Generally speaking, the citizens regard the City of Coquitlam as having a high quality of life, and there's a strong satisfaction in city services. I believe this is indicative of Council's strong leadership in terms of delivering the projects and services that the community desires, as well as the good work of staff in terms of carrying out the direction of Council and delivering those projects and services. With that, I will turn things over to Jennifer Rennie, who's the Senior Research Manager for Ipsos Reid, and she's going to run through the results of the survey.
Thank you, Your Worship and Councillors, for having me here tonight. I'll try to keep this relatively brief. This is the key highlights from the Citizen Satisfaction Survey. We have prepared a report for you to review the detailed findings. So this year we conducted the survey with 400 adult residents of Coquitlam. This year we did conduct the survey in the fall. Normally we conduct the survey in the spring, but because of the provincial elections, we didn't want to bombard citizens with telephone calls of this nature when there was other campaigning going on at the time. And we also made a point to conduct the interviews before by-election activity commenced in Coquitlam as well. My division is public affairs, and we focus also on municipal affairs as well, and we conduct several of these types of studies throughout the province. This year we are presenting the results against normative data from Lower Mainland as well as from across the province as well. So overall, the City of Coquitlam continues to deliver and it continues to offer its citizens a good quality of life. When we ask these questions, we first ask generally good versus poor, and then we drill down a little bit more to capture the intensity. So by asking one question, we could capture whether it's good or poor, and also how good they perceive the various questions to be. So for this one, overall, the quality of life is comparable to both Lower Mainland municipalities and other BC municipalities, but the intensity in Coquitlam is stronger, with the very good results being higher than, comparable municipalities.
We've got on the previous, bring up the previous one, please.
Sorry?
Okay, on the bottom you have poor or very poor at 2%, it's 3%.
This due to rounding. It might be 2 and then 2.1, which rounds down to 2.
No, okay, go ahead. My apologies.
Okay, so the quality of life in Coquitlam is consistently improving. Overall, majority of citizens are saying that the quality of life has stayed the same, but when we ask this question, we like to calculate what we call a net momentum score, where we take a look at those who have said it is improved and compare that against those who have said it has worsened. When we subtract worsened from improved, we get a net momentum score for Coquitlam of plus 12. This has been consistent across the board for the city of Coquitlam, but when you compare that to other lower mainland municipalities and other municipalities across BC, the net momentum score is much higher than the norm. We did ask reasons for why the quality of life has improved, and the notable mention here is transportation improvements. And throughout this report, you will also see other mentions of transportation and some shifts that we've seen in that area. Overall, the top mentions are comparable to what we've seen in the past. And the main reasons for the perceptions of a worsened quality of life just tend to stem from, the growth that is going on in the area. But there is a word of caution that the base size here is under 100, and these numbers are quite small, relatively speaking. So at the beginning of the survey, we like to ask citizens what their top issue is on a top-of-mind basis. We haven't prompted them with any other questions or any other ideas. And the top item that comes up and has come up from over time is transportation. And in Coquitlam, transportation does come up higher than norms, higher than most BC norms, and in the Lower Mainland, transportation is higher, but in Coquitlam, transportation issues are slightly higher than what we've seen elsewhere in the province. And in Coquitlam, one other notable item that we do find is mentions of social issues are slightly lower than what we've seen in other municipalities. And under the category of social issues, there'd be issues like homelessness and things of that nature didn't come to the surface when first asked. When tracking the top-of-mind issues, as I mentioned, there has been a statistically significant decline in the mentions of transportation since the last survey conducted, and that just potentially points to some of the improvements and the developments that have been going on in the area since the last survey was conducted. So overall, Coquitlam citizens are satisfied with the overall level and the quality of the city's service delivery. Again, here's another question where we ask generally, are you satisfied or dissatisfied? And then we drill down to get the intensity. And the intensity in Coquitlam is much higher than the norms in the Lower Mainland and also across the province. Even though overall generally satisfied, but once we drill down to specify whether it's very or somewhat, there is much more satisfaction in the city. And then looking at the specific services, the results are generally comparable to what we have seen across the board in other municipalities. And, sorry, they're slightly higher than what we see across the board in other municipalities. In comparing the results since 2012, two services show statistically significant changes. Recycling and garbage services are up since 2012, and road maintenance is also up since 2012. So we did ask satisfaction, and we also asked the importance. As you can see, if you take a look at the very important plus the somewhat important, everything is generally important to citizens. These are expectations. But to get a gauge of their priorities, you would take a look at the higher intensity point of very important, and you could see relative to each other how those services are falling out. Since 2012, one service has increased significantly, again, is road maintenance. In terms of intensity, that is the only service that has had change since last year, and that rose in importance from 61% last year to 70% this year in terms of intensity. The other services in terms of importance pretty much stayed the same since 2012. So when asked, most citizens believe that they receive good value for their municipal tax dollars. At 88%, this result is slightly higher than the norm for Lower Mainland and across the province. And we also see a statistically significant increase since last year overall when combining good and fairly good value. So there has been improvements there. And we do have a standard question that we like to ask across the province, and that is perceptions of increased taxes versus cuts in services. So the question is what the preference would be for this. And we've seen for a number of years that, Coquitlam residents are split. 48% say that they would prefer an increase in taxes, and 41% would say that they would prefer to see cuts in services. There is a growing gap. It's starting to look that people are starting to lean towards the increases in taxes versus the cut services, but the math, it's statistically, it's still a little bit within the margin of error. But it is on par with other municipalities in terms of increased taxes, but the gap isn't as wide as we see in other municipalities. So for now, we can say that citizens are still split on this issue, whereas in other municipalities, we would say that there is a preference for increased taxes. In terms of customer services, we have had about half of citizens who have contacted the city for some reason. This is typical of what we see across the province. But satisfaction in Coquitlam with that contact is higher. It's increased significantly since 2012 within the city, and it's also now higher than what we see in the Lower Mainland and across, even more so than against other municipalities within the province. We did ask about specific aspects of service delivery. These questions were not asked for a number of years. I believe the last time we recorded these was in 2008. We don't have historical numbers to compare to right now, but we can say that across the board there are a number of key higher ratings than other municipalities. Another open-ended question that we ask is about the perceptions of the biggest crime and personal safety issue that's currently facing the city. This year, the top item is robbery theft, which is comparable to what we have seen last year. Last year, there were more specific breakdowns, specifically break and enter, auto theft, and general theft. But the overriding theme is the same this year as the top issue. Even more telling this year, 25% couldn't name a crime issue that they feel is facing the city of Coquitlam today. And because transportation is a key issue facing the city, we do ask some specific transportation-related questions, and another open-ended question, what is the biggest transportation issue? This year, the top statements is generally about the quality or lack of service, or really the lack of alternatives to driving. Historically, rapid transit really surfaced to the top, and this year when we combine what was mentioned for rapid transit with the SkyTrain and Evergreen line, statistically speaking, the results are lower, perhaps pointing to that there are some improvements coming, and there's been some changes there that are starting to ease the minds of citizens today. We did ask also some of the transportation priorities, prompting citizens with these options. The top are upgrading the condition of existing roads, promoting public transit, and improving public transit. And these have been consistent since first measured in 2010. And that's.
There you go.
Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. An amazing lack of curiosity. Oh, there's one. Excellent report. I do appreciate, and I'm going to go to Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. Yes, it's a tremendous report. We like getting good news, and I think the assistant city manager talked about credit to council's leadership and the credit to the staff. I would say that we get a lot of great advice from the staff, great reports to help us set the direction, and we have a good council that works together for the improvement of the city. I'd like to know on the important crime and personal safety issue, and that was page 60 of our report, and it says that 29% of the mentions deal with robbery and theft. Do we know if how does that compare to other regions in the Lower Mainland? Is that a question that's asked elsewhere or just asked here?
Yeah, it's not a question that we ask, or we would have the norm comparison for that.
And the other one, I think just top of mind issues, I think crime was at 10% there. That was tracking top of mind issues, crime, on page 23. Is there any comparison with Metro there?
Against the Lower Mainland, it's 14%.
Oh, there it is there. Okay, I didn't see it. Because what? Oh, was it in our report? Yes, it was on the wrong page. I was looking at the wrong page. Thank you. Okay, that's all I needed. I wanted to just drill down a little into the theft issue. I appreciate it. Very good presentation. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you surveyed 400 people.
Yes.
And how many calls did you make to get 400 online?
400 telephone. I don't have the call disposition in front of me, but to get 400, typically we might go through at least 10,000 numbers.
Okay, and now I'd like to know from the management, how much did this survey cost us?
The cost of the survey is approximately $25,000. $25,000.
$25,000. So it's about $6 per call. About $6 and some odd cents per call. And on 121,000 people in this city, I wouldn't want to hang my hat on a survey done for 400 people. I can tell you that, because on a street, in restaurants, you hear some awful different stories. I'm not saying that the city's falling apart or anything else, but they're quite dissatisfied with the taxation and a few other things in this city. And I'm sure that the candidates that ran in the last election will tell you when they were door knocking. That was most upfront. The fact is that the taxes were too high and the spending was too high. So, those are the things. So, I know the surveys, how anybody hangs their hat on the survey. I couldn't hang my hat on this survey, not for 1 minute, because I don't think I'm not saying that it's maybe not accurate. Maybe the 400 people that we got hold of was exactly what they said. There's more than 400 people in this city. There's 121,000 in this city. And I think you'd get a different story out there on the street and in restaurants and places like that, where there are a lot of, in restaurants, in pubs, you name it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say.
No, I'm not going to go over to you next, Councillor Robinson. She's pushing her button over there. Actually, I have a question on that, though. I mean, 400 is a large sample from the point of view of this kind of survey. What kind of margin of error, I know that's discussed in the report, but perhaps you could describe the margin of order, the statistical significance of a survey of 400 in a community of 80,000 voters and 120,000 people.
Yeah, so the city sometimes conducts surveys with 600. Over time, we vary it, mostly due to budget, but 400 we feel is a reliable number for looking at the results overall. And then we also like to look at the subgroups. So we do view gender, neighborhood, age, household composition, household size. To look at those subgroups, you would want a minimum of 50 to 100, and that's where we build that number up. Across the province, for example, we may do a 400 to 500 sample, depending on whether you're looking at the drill down or whether you're looking at the overall results. So overall, the results, I believe the margin of error is 4.9%, either way.
Okay, and that's what I'm looking at. Your overall results are accurate to within a plus or minus 4% percentage points 19 times out of 20. Obviously larger for smaller sample groups. We also saw very similar numbers on most of this last year and the year before and the year before. So I gather that the repeating of this kind of survey with exactly the same question, getting the same answers on some of the ones that haven't changed, obviously the ones that where the conditions haven't changed, would suggest that the survey is even more valid as we go on.
I agree.
Okay, Councillor Asmundson.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. We have MLA Robinson here, and I think this MLA councillor was here. It's one of her favorite reports. And it's probably my favorite report because it gives you a true indication, a statistically valid indication of what the people in Coquitlam are feeling like. We hold town hall meetings, but we only get between 70 and 80, or it isn't statistically valid. We get a feel of some people's issues, but we don't get a statistically valid. This 400 statistically valid, it's a survey that's been going on for a number of years, the same questions year in, year out, that we can track, as you can see in the results here, over a year to see what we're doing, what the people are feeling like. And what I like about this is broken down between genders, between age groups, between areas of the city, so you're getting a wide representation throughout the whole city, not people coming from one issue, one area, or one point of view. You're getting a broad area. So I find this information throughout the year. Once we get this report and I'm looking at decisions, I go back to this report and I refer to it and I look at it, and as Councillor O'Neill just did on some of the crime stats, it makes for very good information for us. So I think it's great value for what we do, and I think it's one of the better reports that we get by the city for value for dollar, and it's used in a lot of other ways by our planning department, our city. So I thank you for the work. And I see, as we're trending in the right direction, what I think the report tells us is that a lot of the things the city's doing in the direction that we're taking is what the citizens want, and we're moving in the right direction. We're not perfect, but we're going in the right direction. And we outscored satisfaction rates above all other municipalities in the Lower Mainland. So that's heartening to hear. It means we've set a standard, and we need to keep it going. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item, item 3, concerns the minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, October 28th. The recommendations to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the regular council meeting of Monday, October 28th. Recommendation to approve those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Joint Family Court and Youth Justice Committee meeting of Thursday, September 26. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is the first report of staff this evening. It's the authorization for a development variance permit at 1288 Lougheed Highway. Prior to putting forward the recommendation from staff, I would call upon the mayor to ask for speakers.
We conduct a mini public hearing for a development variance permit. Are there any speakers to this item? Are there any speakers to this item? Are there any speakers to this item? Seeing none.
Move recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, seconded by Councillor Hodge. The recommendation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is a preliminary report on an application for zoning amendment bylaw 4440. And this is for 707 Clarke Road. Recommendation from staff is that council give first reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4440 and that bylaw 4440 be referred to public hearing.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, second by Councillor Hodge. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 8 is an application for a temporary use permit for a temporary homeless shelter at 1160 Lansdowne Drive. This is the Eagle Ridge Bible Fellowship. Prior to stating the recommendation from staff, I would call upon the mayor to ask for speakers.
Okay, I will do that. Council has expressed publicly its support for the cold wet weather mat program. The question today is before us is, should a temporary use permit be granted to this address? This is an address that has had a cold wet weather mat program participation in the past, and but council is open-minded about it, so we're going to hear from the public. Are there any speakers to this item? Are there any speakers to this item? Please step forward. Our convention is you'll give your name and address for the record.
David Esau. Address is 2338 Knott Avenue, Port Coquitlam. I'm pastor at Eagle Ridge Bible Fellowship, and just want to make a brief note that we appreciate the partnership. Having been to this community less than 2 years, one of the things that was very encouraging for me to not only find out that our church was a part of the cold weather mat program, but especially to find out the collaboration that this program has been a part of with Hope for Freedom Society and the churches, but also in the community. And I know that when we have opened up our doors and been actively a part of this, that it hasn't just been our congregation that's been a part of it, but other people, other churches, and other people in the neighborhood as well. And just one of the things that we've done in the last 2 years is hold a fall fair, and with a garage sale and proceeds going towards the bridge shelter and cold weather mat program, just to let our neighbors know as well what's a part of it, and we've just found a very positive response to that. And so I appreciate the support and partnership that we've been able to have in this. Thank you.
I know council has always appreciated the efforts that your congregation has made in this program, and of course we're open-minded about this one.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dan Schmidt. I live at 408 Madison Street in Coquitlam. I'll keep it very brief because I've heard your comments. I do appreciate Council considering this application. I'm really proud to be part of a city that cares for those who are often on the edge of our communities. I'm part of a church at Hillside Community Church, been a regular volunteer at Eagle Ridge, and so I know from the inside out the help that the Wet Weather Mats program has done in helping people get off the streets and helping provide a safe place for people who are on the streets. And so I just want to add my positive voice to encourage the council to vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers to this item? Any other speakers to this item? Third and final time. Are there any other speakers to this item? Being none, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The staff recommendations that Council authorize the issuance of a temporary use permit for 1160 Lansdowne Drive at the Eagle Ridge Bible Fellowship for a minimum period of 2 years to allow for the operation of a temporary rotating homeless shelter, and 2, that Council waive the TUP application fee of $2,500.
Moved by everybody, seconded by everybody else. I'll go Councillor Asmundson moved, Councillor Sikora seconded, only because they're closest and the voice heard me. You got to reach me. Any debate? I was thinking. You were thinking. Telepathy. All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries unanimously, and with deep thanks to the congregation at Eagle Ridge Bible Fellowship. I want to express Council's appreciation to all of the congregations of Coquitlam who participate so fully in this, people who volunteer their time, people who volunteer their church, people who raise the money for food, do all kinds of things related to this. There was one other element. Perhaps I'll throw it over to Councillor Asmundson for a quick explanation of what took place related to the transportation side of things, because that was the remaining question in this one. And Councillor Asmundson, to you.
Thank you, Mayor. As everybody knows, the story of why we're coming back to the cold weather mat program is we didn't get the extension or the permit from Port Coquitlam to continue with Grace Church, which is an excellent location, did a great job. Hope for Freedom Society, the people in the cold wet weather mat program and looking after homeless were thrown into the scramble mode to find alternate place. The churches, Mark Francisco, the Coquitlam Lions Church I'm a member of, worked with the other churches to restart the cold wet weather mat program. But from what Rob had told me is that when they went to the single location, they lost their transportation funding. And when I went to the church in the first week of October, and after the service, I asked Mark Francisco, I said, where's the funds to do the transportation? He said, we're going to pray for it, Brent, we don't have it. So I took it upon myself to do something about that. And I think if Rob Thiessen's here, and I don't know, I contacted a bunch of corporations, and I thank God for their generosity and their kindness that came about. But TransLink Coast Mountain Bus Company donated an out-of-service community shuttle bus to the Hope for Freedom Society. The Infinity Benchmark Corporation donated $10,000. Polygon Corporation donated $5,000. West Build Corporation, you heard earlier tonight, donated $2,500. Team Leo of Leo Brunel's realty team, Bruno, sorry, a little emotional, donated $2,000. The BD Group donated $1,500. Epic and Brad Marco Consulting donated $800. Mosaic donated $500. There's another donation of $500 for a total of $22,800 to make sure that the transportation funds are there for the cold wet weather mat program to move forward. You know, I did something to help out, but I want to point out something here. What I did was for an emergency situation. These companies came through amazingly within a 3-week period. But I'm going to single out a couple people in their teams. Rob Thiessen, Hope for Freedom Society. I want to thank Rob and his team for their commitment to the homelessness and what they've done to the homelessness in this area, because they lived this not for 5 months, the cold wet weather mat program, but 365 days a year in dealing with the homeless and helping them. Sandy, Kathy Burpee, the Homeless Task Force, can't thank you guys enough and what you do in the Sheriff Society behind you and what you guys do on this issue. I was honored to be able to help make something happen in this in a small way. But I thank all of you for what you do in this great cause of reducing homelessness. And it's something very close to me. And I thank you.
Well, I want to acknowledge Councillor Asmundson, because I disagree with him all the time on public policy issues. But he took matters into his own hands and managed to, when he informed council that he had arranged for this, I was quite proud that we now had the money in place, and we now had a bus in place, and we now have another church in place. So everything's fallen in place, thank God, and we're moving forward, and I appreciate all of those who've been involved. This has been absolutely quick, very quick coming together of a plan after a setback, and I think that bodes well for this community as it moves forward toward 2015 when we open a homeless shelter at 3030 Gordon. So thank you all. And thank you, Councillor Rasmussen. Mr. Clerk.
On that begrudging note, item 9 is Metro Vancouver Board and Brief. We have our representatives available to respond to questions, and the recommendation from staff is that Council receive the brief for information.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, second by Councillor Hodge. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Councillor Rasmussen forgot to ask if I wanted to drive.
Councillor Rasmussen. Councillor Reid offers to drive the bus. Yeah, and if it's going up the wall, I know she can drive us there.
That's the last formal item on this evening's agenda.
We have one item from Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, this is from the. This is a notice of motion, and it's designed to make a great community even better. It's dealing with chronic and prolific offenders. It says, whereas the City of Coquitlam's recent citizen satisfaction survey found that crime, with 10% of respondents citing it, was tied for third in the list of issues of most concern to Coquitlam residents, and whereas that same survey found that Coquitlam residents state that robbery theft is at 29% cited, the leading personal safety issue facing the City of Coquitlam today, and whereas the Coquitlam RCMP detachment reports that chronic offenders are a major source of crime, specifically robbery and theft in Coquitlam, and this even in the wake of the increasingly successful work of the detachment's prolific and chronic offender management program. And whereas incorrigible offenders who have clearly demonstrated their unrelenting willingness to engage in criminal behavior have a direct and negative impact on the welfare of law-abiding citizens and on policing budgets. And whereas the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police passed Resolution 09-2008 at its 2008 annual convention calling for the Federal Minister of Justice to amend the Criminal Code so as to toughen bail and sentencing provisions in order to protect Canadians who have been victimized by chronic offenders. And whereas that resolution was endorsed by the FCM at its 2009 convention, and whereas the federal government has not directly implemented the CACP or FCM's recommendations on chronic offenders, even though it has acted in some other areas to strengthen conditional sentencing rules and introduce mandatory minimum sentencing, therefore be it resolved that Coquitlam Council call on the Federal Minister of Justice to heed the advice of both the CACP and the FCM by directly implementing the CACP's Resolution 09-2008, and that this resolution of Coquitlam Council be forwarded to the FCM for consideration and support at its next convention. Moved by me and seconded by Councillor Asmunsen.
And I suspect by the rest of us.
Motion to
And
adjourn.
Councillor Asmunsen moves to adjourn. Seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I'll now open the floor to any questions on tonight's agenda from the audience, if there are any. Any questions on tonight's agenda? Any questions at all? Up to 2 minutes. Seeing none, thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.